So let's get right into it. We got America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Joe, take it away.
Yeah,
here.
Cowboys. Let's take a look at their wide receiving core right here. So we all know that CeeDee Lamb is still holding out, still waiting on a contract extension, and rightfully so. Guy is getting at the end of his rookie deal, looking to cash in, wants to be paid like the likes of maybe Justin Jefferson and whatnot. But we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out, because the Cowboys, they're in a very tight situation when it comes to money. But they also have a guy who's been with the Cowboys since 22, and Jalen Tolbert, who looks like he's going to take a step upwards into that starting role and try to make a name for himself there. You still got Brandon Cooks returning for another season there. After that, it's kind of like a mishmash grouping of wide receivers all trying out to not only just make the team, but even to get some playing time coming into this season. Guys for the likes of Kevontae Turpin, who's kind of been this returning specialist for the Cowboys and is definitely gifted with speed and quickness for sure. Very hard to tackle in the open field, but he's small in stature, so I feel like that's kind of like his limitation at the NFL level. But I still would be curious to maybe utilize him in like a very creative offense where he could do jet sweeps out of the backfield. You kind of just like mix it up, or where you have him line up in the backfield and go out to the flat, just catch a pass and then run with it after the catch. So I just think that after that starting lineup, your top three, there's a lot of question marks after that. Are they going to be able to hold up for the long term of this season? Because let's just say, for example, Cooks goes down with an injury. It could happen. And now who's going to step up in his place? Are they going to be able to match his, talent level? And that's the big question mark here, is after that lineup, it kind of falls right off.
Yeah, and you bring up the wide receivers, Joe. I mean, these wide receivers have been good all last year. They had the number one offense in the league, which is kind of surprising again because, Mike McCarthy and his offense, I thought, again, everybody had it kind of figured out. He's pretty predictable. I was surprised. So that's one of the things I was wrong about, and I'll admit that. But again, Brandon Cooks did a really well job. CeeDee Lamb doing what he does. So Brandon Cooks, again, kind of that unsung hero, like I kind of said a bunch of times last year, putting it up there when CeeDee Lamb wasn't there. Brandon Cooks was always there to deliver. But again, it's about the young guys. I think a lot of people really do want to see Turpin out there get some more plays, get more involved. And Mike McCarthy has said that he's going to do some of that. Yes, he's electric on the kick returns and punt returns and stuff like that. But getting him involved in this offense, and especially seeing with his legs and things like that, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him on more of those jet sweeps. So I don't know if they have to worry about injury so much. I haven't seen him really get injured, but if they do, yes, that could potentially be a problem.
He hasn't had the greatest track record when it comes in terms of his career. He has been banged up. He's missed times with other teams and even missed seasons. So he had a healthy year last year, and that was great for him and the Cowboys. But who knows? Another year coming in, he is getting older. He's not in his prime, so to speak. So you always got to kind of worry about that with any player in your starting lineup. Going into the offensive line here. Now, this was a concern for some people because they haven't believed in the Cowboys offensive line for quite some time. Yes, they still got all pro Zach Martin at guard still. They have Terrence Steele to lock up the right tackle spot, which Steele has been a pleasant surprise since coming to the league in 2020. He's got that right side locked down. But then when you start to look at the left side of it, where they drafted Tyler Guyton in the first round this year, he's penciled in the start. Now, this is a guy that isn't pro. He's not really pro ready. He's kind of like this talented player that needs to develop. He needs to grow in order to be that starter for them at left tackle. And that to me is a little shaky. I think he's got quickness, he's got athleticism, but on the other hand, he doesn't have the greatest of anchor. He doesn't have the greatest strength. And I think at the next level, now you're playing with the big boys where you're going to have to face the likes of, Trey Hendrickson. You're going to face the likes of Max Crosby. You're going to face TJ Watt and all these guys, Myles Garrett, and the list goes on, where they're going to really test you every single snap. So that's a little concerning for me. And then you go into the left guard spot, Tyler Smith, who was thought originally to kick out to left tackle, but they decided to draft Tyler Guyton, and they're going to keep Smith at guard, and hopefully he keeps continuing getting better. And then the center spot is, to me, honestly the biggest weakness. And Brock Hoffman coming over from San Fran, who hasn't been a starter, is penciled to be the starter, but there's no what's the experience? You know what I mean? What do we got going on here? So maybe the Cowboys seen something in him, and they obviously believe in him enough to put him in there. But they did take a center in the draft in the 3rd round in Cooper Beebe, who was seen by many as the top center coming out, despite other people what they were thinking. So Cooper Beebe is a really solid player, good player. Who knows? Maybe he wins that job in training camp, and they look a little bit more comfortable going into the season. So to me, there's some ups and downs with this offensive line. I think there's more weakness on the left side. Right side, I think, is rock solid. But going into the season, that to me is what I'm going to be looking to watch for the Cowboys.
Right. And you pretty much said it all here too. Again, left side is probably the most suspect. And then at center too, something a little different here. Zach Martin's going to still stay true. Terrence Steele, you're locked in right there. And I think that's key for them to protect Dak Prescott here. The one thing I think is kind of funny, maybe prematurely getting into it, is that the fact that he decided to move on to Tony Pollard too. When he had 1,000 yards rushing, in this Mike McCarthy offense, I was blown away because again, you don't traditionally see that. You see back when he even had Amon Green and stuff, he did well with that offense, but nothing like 1,000-yard rusher consecutively and things like that.
Right.
So the fact that they move on with him and go and bring Zeke Elliott back, Zeke is slender. He's a little more, drop some of that weight and stuff like that.
We'll see.
But I don't know if you really gain there on the running back position now.
No, you don't gain anything. But going back to Tony Pollard, they couldn't afford him. It was that simple. They just couldn't afford to keep him. They had to make sure like future contracts like Dak Prescott that they're still working on, like CeeDee Lamb. They still have to figure that out. They knew that they would have to allocate money elsewhere to a different position for the future. So Tony Pollard, it is what it is. They had to let him walk. They couldn't afford him, and that's why he's gone. But yeah, you're right. Is Ezekiel Elliott, is it the sexy pick? Maybe for some Cowboys fans that are ride or die with Elliott. They he is a huge fan favorite there in Dallas. So people are probably some people are comfortable with it. Then I really do think that there's other fans that are like, oh man, we got him back, but now he's got more tread on the tires. He's a little older. He took a little bit of a pounding in New England. Is he the same dynamic running back that we had in Pollard? Absolutely not. He's not a guy that's a playmaker, really. He's more like just a power back, a guy who's going to move the chains. He's going to get the hard yardage. And maybe in the red zone, he'll plow in for the touchdown, but a guy that's not going to make any dynamic plays for you, not going to run 40, 50, 60 yards down the football field and, break it open. So yeah, there's a little bit of a difference there. And I say a little bit, but I mean a lot of it. And then the backup behind him, there's a couple of them now. Deuce Vaughn, who played last season, got some playing time, kind of like your mini-me of running backs, very short in stature, but a guy who's very strong, keeps his balance well. I look for him to kind of maybe get a little bit more playing time than he did last year in a running back by rotation scenario, because they did sign Royce Freeman from free agency, bringing him in. Rico Dowdle played also last season, but I feel like there was a little bit more life with him. He's more of this tough, gritty power back / guy that can make you miss too. And I really liked his spunk. I really liked how he ran very hard for the Cowboys last season. So, I mean, honestly, as long as they keep this a rotation, I think you're going to get something a little bit different from each running back, and that's going to throw off some defenses from time to time. So maybe they could get by with this kind of a rotation.
Yep, I see you there too. And Dak Prescott, again, even though this guy again hasn't been able to have that playoff success, it's it's all on his shoulders. It's partially some of his fault and stuff like that too. How do you have this number one ranked offense? The great season yards. Again, if you look at his stats yearly, they're amazing. You take out the 2 years that he was banged up, he's automatically getting 4,500 plus yards and not too many turnovers. Again, one bad year thrown in a little bit.
He had one terrible year.
Overall, not too shabby. And again, it really makes me sick to my stomach to talk well about Dallas Cowboy quarterback. I think I almost just threw up in my mouth, Joe. I mean, it was crazy. But he's got to step up here for them. Again, yes, I get it for a little bit. into the playoffs. But I think then when you get to there, it's about coaching. We've seen coaches fail in the playoffs too as well, and that's kind of been Mike McCarthy's thing too as well. For his career, I guess you can put him on the blame in some of that. When you come in there with a team, like I said, who's your top 5 in offense, top 5 in defense, and you still can't come out of there with a win, there's some issues there above what the players are doing. Scheme, things like that. But Dak Prescott, as long as that contract thing here is looming, it's a very interesting thing that we're going to see throughout this season, because we talked about this team with how they need to they get so many good players a lot of times. This is the questions you have, just like with the San Francisco 49ers. You can't afford to pay them all. Like you said, Tony Pollard was a victim to the money issue, the cap. And now you got to pay CeeDee Lamb, and what's Dak Prescott going to get? Because like I said, the numbers are there. They're showing you there, but he hasn't had the playoff success. And how much does that attribute to what, he is going to be getting here this season and what the team's going to be able to afford and what moves on, for him in his career?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is the money game. Everyone's trying to figure out, will Dak sign with the Cowboys? It sounds like out of Dallas right now, currently, that talks are going well. Nobody has any animosity on either side. It's kind of one of these things where we're just meeting up like good friends and we're going to hash this thing out. It sounds like they are coming to an end result. They're coming to an agreement of some sort, possibly in the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks tops, because they want to get this thing done now. They really do. They want to get this deal done and lock him up. And it sounds like things are going well. So based off of what we're hearing, I can only hope that or assume that it's going to get done in the end. And if that's the case, and this deal does get done, I swear you have to look at anywhere between 45-50 million as a starting point, or at least a closing point, where you're going to look at that contract around that number for Dak Prescott. And we kind of talked about this before with Dak Prescott and this contract, and then you still have to lock up CeeDee Lamb. So when you give a big deal like that to Dak and lock him in, now you got to turn your sights on CeeDee Lamb. To be honest, I think that CeeDee Lamb should have been the number one priority over Dak. Now I get Dak Prescott is playing really well in his career. He's playing amazing football as a quarterback. But then you also got to look at the future too, where maybe you don't give all the money to Dak Prescott. Maybe you look at, there's a couple of quarterbacks that you've been grooming, guys like Trey Lance, who you traded for, Cooper Rush, who, when he did get the call to start when Dak Prescott got hurt, played, some people believe he played better than Dak Prescott in this offense. So it's like you have you have great depth behind Dak. What's the sense of, if you can't get a deal done reasonably with Dak Prescott, maybe you do move on from Dak. Maybe you go ahead and you lock up CeeDee Lamb with the big deal, and then you make it a quarterback competition this training camp between Cooper Rush and Trey Lance, who you traded for. And you made investment in Lance in that trade. Let's see if it can pan out. Have him go up against Cooper Rush. And then in the very end, you still got a solid quarterback, even if it is just Rush as your starter, where you don't have to pour a crap ton of money to Dak Prescott and lock him in at the later part of his career. So there's a couple different ways they're going about right now. It sounds like everything's good. It sounds like they're going to end up locking Dak first and then turn their sights onto CeeDee Lamb. So we'll have to see how this all shakes out. But I know that guys like Cooper Rush, I know like Trey Lance, I know they don't want to stay backups forever. So it's going to be an interesting situation when it's all said and done.
Yeah. And then moving on to the defense, again, we got a different defensive coordinator for them, and there's a little bit of personnel changes on the defense. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to look at. I think this defense isn't going to be a top 5. I think it's going to take a step back with some of the different changes that they had. Yes, I think Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence still going to do their type of stuff here. But
DeMarcus who?
Yeah,
DeMarcus
exactly.
who?
Yeah.
Like, what has he done?
Like, yeah. Where's he been? Right.
Yeah.
So I think the defense, you're going to see a little bit different here, and you're going to see the effects, of having the changeover on the defensive coordinator end.
See,
Especially in the middle, I think, of the linebacker situation.
I think differently. I think that they're still going to have a really good defense. They still have everybody returning. Basically, they signed Malik Hooker to fill in that free safety spot. But other than that, I mean, they still got Deron Bland, shutdown corner. They got Trevon Diggs returning. Eric Kendricks, they landed to lock up that middle linebacker spot, and they have some young talent behind him who's seen time. So, and that D-line, like, it's a really good D-line minus maybe DeMarcus Lawrence, because let's face it, Cowboys fans, I know you watch the games. What has DeMarcus Lawrence done for you with this big blockbuster contract that he signed years ago? I mean, he's getting towards the end of his career. The Cowboys know it because they were hoping guys like Sam Williams, who just recently got injured in training camp, sadly is going to miss the season due to injury. They were hoping that he could kind of like maybe take over that position, not necessarily this season, but at least be in rotation. So all in all, I think that they still got a very, very solid defensive front seven, back end. Like, I still think they're going to be very good. Now, the interesting part of it is that in this past draft is that they had to fill holes behind the starting lineup, where you notice a lot of new names on the defensive roster, whether it be linebacker or D-line or in the back end at corner. So those guys are going to be looked for towards the future of maybe developing to possibly be starters down the road. But I would say as of this year, they're still in good hands with guys like Diggs and Bland and in the back end and so forth. So I do think that the Cowboys defense is still going to be very good, especially now that it is healthy in its entirety.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.